Hello, welcome. I kind of messed up my intro. I was unprepared and I don't know why. I clicked the buttons and it still surprised me. I don't know why that is, but welcome everybody. If you're here for the first time, this is Fundamentalist Fails, where we go through some of the most interesting and most epically poor arguments from sort of fundamentalists and other adjacent people. I guess we do all kinds of things, like people doing spiritualism and all kinds of stuff. Is David Wood a fundamentalist? No, not really. So I must admit, like this was kind of clickbait. But David Wood is a guy that I can't stay away from. Like he just is. He's fascinating because of A, his background, B, the arguments that he makes coming out of a doctorate in philosophy are just interesting. And I think that he is one of the more interesting people, a bit like William Lane Craig, if William Lane Craig had no sense of empathy whatsoever. And he's not really to blame for that, as I'll go into. But it's good to see you all. I see Left-Handed Jedi was in here earlier. Binge Thinker, always a pleasure. Pragmatic Crystal, hello. So good to see you. I'm going to pop out my chat. I'm a little unprepared, but I do have the video and everything ready. So I found this. This was sort of from the last 24 hours, what I'm going to go through. And really, I want to highlight just how weird it is to see somebody with a doctorate in philosophy really give a childish argument for his religion and against atheism. Essentially, it isn't based upon any kind of reasoned and reasonable debate or reasonable argumentation, but rather on, well, you'll see, just sort of childish name calling and really weird stuff, analogies happening. And I've got two clips, but this might be a shorter episode. Now, before I forget, and I want to sort of reward the newcomers or the early achievers on the stream, like left-handed Jedi, good-handed left, yeah. All of the new people on the stream. That's not what I'm after. I should have readerships to give away, but I do. Yes. I'm not going crazy. There we go. All right. There you go. Who'd I get? Okay, they're going out. You take those readerships. Oh, some awesome people in there. So Reed S, Sabracadabro, Al Trucker, Jenna, love Jenna. The Watcher all get readerships. Congratulations. I didn't hit left-handed. Oh no, left-handed Jedi is a reader anyway. No, I gotcha. Sorry, mate. I was aiming for you and I didn't hit you because it couldn't have happened. But yep, enjoy your benefits and emotes, winners, all of you. Yeah, Jenna. I haven't seen Jenna for ages. I think her and Oz are sort of more focusing on the music because Oz is a DJ, so they're part of Tang or the Atheist Network group. Okay, they were doing open rooms at one point, and I kind of was hoping they'd get a debate thing started, but not really. Oh, no problem at all, Reed. Oh, my pleasure, mate. My pleasure. Honestly, it's great to have you here. It's great to have all of you here. I also have an announcement to make. So you guys are the first to hear. I am going to be, through popular demand and sheer peer pressure, quite frankly. Well, I'm lying. It is my choice, but I am going to start up aimbot again. So if you were missing aimbot and you were like, yeah, Mark, he sucks. He took it away because he was angry with Reddit. Everyone seems to have got over their Reddit anger. So people have been asking for it, including my wife has been asking for it. So I've been working on that, and I will start up the aimbot, which is, am I morally bankrupt or them? I'll put in chat. Yeah, aimbot. So basically, it's going through the Reddit "Am I the Arsehole" posts and looking at it in the light of secular humanism, consequentialism, but sort of my own take on consequentialism. I'm not sure if philosophically it's got a name. I'm playing around with it, sort of, because I think so. Consequentialism, the problem, allow me, I'm just going to do a tangent. The problem with it is if you only guide by the consequences, you have these interesting things that happen, these interesting um, situations where if you're only concerned about the consequences, then what you were trying to do doesn't matter. Like, okay, take this example, for instance. You attempt to, just say you attempt to assassinate somebody, right? So obviously an immoral thing to do. Like, we wouldn't condone that at all. And if you succeeded, then yes, it would be a horrible thing. But just say you hit another assassin that was creeping up with a knife behind them, right? You're a sniper, you shoot, you hit another assassin creeping up with a knife. Under consequentialism, you just did a good act. You saved their life, kind of thing, right? So if consequence is the only thing you're looking at, you get these situations where it doesn't matter what you intended, rather the consequence is the only thing that matters. And I think that is a poor way to make decisions on what is good and what is bad. Rather, I would think that we would go for what the reasonable outcome, the reasonable intent of consequences that you have. So, because just consider the same situation, because the reasonable intent that you had, the reasonable expectation of hitting that person and killing them, I think that means that you were still doing a bad thing, even though the consequence was good for everybody, kind of thing. Well, I guess for the murderer, but we don't really care about him. I think that the predictive, reasonable outcome that you were looking for is the thing we should judge it on, not necessarily the consequence. So if you, for instance, run into a building trying to save a cat or whatever, or do something like that, I think that because you are trying to do something good and you have a reasonable expectation that will come out to be good, I think we could say that that's a good thing to do. I don't know. I'm muddling this over. I'm thinking way too much about it. But I also I will have that coming out. So aimbot will be Tuesday night. It's going back at exactly the same time it used to be. That's Tuesday night Eastern time, which is Wednesday morning Australian Western Standard Time, which is where I am. So um, yeah, I think that people have been asking for it. People have said they've enjoyed it. People have written me and said they've enjoyed it. And as much as I want to stand on my high horse about Reddit charging for their APIs, which was the original thing that happened. Basically, what happened was that companies used to be able to access Reddit's APIs, or in programming, if you don't do programming, APIs are the library that people use to code stuff. They use them to perform functions on different services. So if someone wanted to access some of Reddit's content, they would use Reddit's APIs. They're sort of libraries written for accessing whatever they're written for. It's not really important. But anyway, Reddit wanted to charge people for it, but the whole principle was that these aren't, it's not Reddit's content to begin with. It's the Reddit users. It's a social thing. So there was a big kerfuffle over it. And to support the community, I boycotted Reddit and closed down aimbot. So I'm starting it again. So it will be the good old aimbot, and maybe I'll try and get people on, ask if they want to do one, and see if we can put some minds together. But yeah, it'll be through the lens of secular humanism, which is sort of my particular brand of consequentialism, and sort of utilitarianism. Just human well-being being the utility there. You are not Big Bad Mama. Hello, I love you. You are not an expert. Yeah, no, Big Bad Mama's been to the aimbots, and people have been asking for them. So that is going to be starting up. I might also have a debate coming up soon. I know that a lot of people don't like modern day debate. It will be on modern day debate. I've been trying to get debates happening on my channel. It's harder than you think. Hey, like I have a newfound respect for those people getting debates happening because it's harder than you think. And I've got a few emails to send on that, a few people to talk to. So I will be lining stuff up. But if you don't know, I did a recent appearance on The Line, which was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed. I was on there with Godless Engineer and really enjoyed his takes on things. He was very good. Very nice guy, actually. Really nice guy. I really enjoyed it. So that was something that I'm going to try to do more of because I really did enjoy doing the call in the call-in thing. Actually, it was interesting. The most objectionable person on there was an atheist. So, I thought it was interesting that the person that gave us the most grief was an atheist, sort of saying, um, um, sorry, Rembrandt, I don't know who KC is. I have no idea. I have no idea. Yeah, well, I mean, my very good friend and friend of the channel, Justin, over at Skeptic Spin, sort of said, "Hey, John, the Godless Engineer is looking for someone you're interested in." And I went, "Absolutely yes." Mrs. Godless. I don't think I've ever met them, to be honest with you, Rembrandt. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, well, Simos. If you're going to look, if you're going to make a joke like that, you've got to spell it correctly. It's not spelt like that. When you toe the line, it's not spelt like that. Oh, thank you, Robin. I appreciate it. And yeah, thanks, Jess. I really appreciate it. My good friend Jess. But today, is that everything? I had a few things to sort of say. I think that's everything. Geez, there was a lot that I had to go through. I think I did fantastic. I was so nervous about it. Like I was absolutely like I'm going on the line with Godless Engineer, who's fantastic. Like a great channel, great guy. Like knows his stuff, has done multiple videos, kind of just amazing. And I was so nervous. And then I kind of just got into the rhythm of the calls kind of thing, and it was just fantastic. Like I just forgot there was an audience. Apparently there was 500 people watching. I had no idea. I just was in my zone talking to people. It was so fantastic, but I was so nervous at the start. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. But why can't I stay away from David? Oh, left-handed Jedi. Thank you so much. Look, buddy, really appreciate it. There you go. Bam. Left-handed Jedi gifts 5 readerships. Out they go to the people. Look, left-handed Jedi is a Jedi of the people. You got to admit it. And hit is Know Your Realm. Andrew Cumming. Nice. Andrew's awesome. Good shot. Sonic Froome. Fresh out of the asylum. Oh boy, I love that username. Fresh out of the asylum. BS Lewis. There you go. There you go. Oh, you're welcome, Simos. I only correct you just to wind you up, mate. You know that. Simos has been a long time, a long time thorn in my side. So let's put it that way. No, Simos, it's awesome. Thanks so much. But why can't I stay away from David Wood? David Wood is. I've been interested in David Wood ever since I saw his conversion story. It's on his page. Maybe I'll go over it one day. But it's kind of it's him wandering around a train station, and it's kind of I think in a way sinister, in a way sort of interesting. It's almost like he doesn't really care about the truth of his. It is more a real pragmatic kind of belief kind of thing. Like, I'm not. He seems to think that without a god and without religion, he would be an evil, heartless person. Now, the man is a sociopath, so that could well be true. I don't know. I have no way of knowing if that's true or not. But I think that um, so basically we have to ask, well, what is sociopathy? Like, what is? I think he was he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. So basically, it is a form of sociopathy. It's so it's kind of it's kind of a little bit distinguishable from other sort of forms of sociopathy, but it is very similar. Oh, I'm sorry, just one second. I've had something pop up and I'm just going to close it. Ugh. Go. I cannot handle you right now. So what's sociopathy? Basically, sociopathy as opposed to psychopathy. Sociopathy is generally the one that we categorize as very, very bad. Psychopathy and sociopathy are very, very similar, but whereas it's sort of a distinction that's been made clear to me, and I want to iterate that I'm not a psychologist or any kind of doctor, but the way it was described to me that sort of psychopaths are born while sociopaths are made. So one seems to be a function of genetics and just being born without the ability to have empathy or generally feel certain things for your fellow humans. Sociopathy, it seems to be something from an early age that's been conditioned into people, and it sort of is more a function of the brain development as somebody grows up. Now, I think David Wood, in a lot of his books, has outlined sort of the horrible environment in which he was raised. A lot of violence, I believe, a lot of violence from his mother, and I really feel for him going through all of that. But as I say that, I realize that he doesn't feel for anybody else. That's something that he probably doesn't understand, and maybe through therapy and sort of some sort of medication, hopefully he will get an understanding of that. And really what I wanted to ask him, because he basically says that it is Christianity that essentially cured him, but I don't know how deep that cure goes, or that sort of being able to overcome his sociopathy goes, because he sort of talks about at one point, really tragically, he lost his son. I've seen a video talking about how sort of people abused him for it and sort of tried to torment him, and atheists tried to torment him. And look, that's horrible, right? If somebody loses their son, I don't care who it is, even if it is an apologist or something, if you're teasing somebody over that, that is horrific. Yeah, and I think it was a lot of Islamic people as well, Robin. No, because this isn't an argument as to why David is wrong. It's just outlining who the man is. He makes this quite clear in all of his thing. You can be a sociopath and absolutely be right. That's not an argument. It's not an argument at all. What I'm saying is that it seems to be a function. And I'll just sort of finish. Yeah, no, but that's disgusting. But he did say that he didn't feel anything about those comments. It didn't matter to him, kind of thing. And look, I good, I guess. But I think that somebody without sociopathy would be really upset by that. And yeah, But he claims that sort of Christianity, or if not cured, moderated his sociopathy, and I totally get that. Like, I get that you found a belief structure that you could think, but I really would like to know whether he's still on medication or has done therapy that could have helped it as well. I really do. Yep, Grayson is back with the new handle. So Grayson is being known as Grayson Hawk from now on because it is a cool name, and he doesn't like being called based or theory or critical. And so he's going for Grayson Hawk, which is actually his first and middle name, I heard on a video the other day. So yeah, Grayson recently appeared with Gutsick Gibbon and Dan Cardinal, Dr. Dan, who's an awesome guy. It was a really interesting video. Highly recommend. So go over to Creation Myths if you do want to see that one. Really, really cool channel. I'm never up when he's on live, which makes me kind of annoyed, but living upside down, that's what happened. So none of this is to sort of say that David Wood is wrong, but it is to say that he does seem to have a very pragmatic approach to Christianity. He doesn't really argue whether a God exists or not, right? And this is something that I've followed with him and followed him saying over a very long time. He doesn't really make a case that God exists. He makes a case that believing in God is good for society or good for individuals or provides benefit to society. He doesn't really go into whether or not that God exists, which is very odd because that would be pivotal to the religion. He more just argues, hey, it's good that people believe in God. So it's kind of interesting that that's his position, because you'd think that honestly your belief in God should be rooted in that you think they exist, or you're confident they exist, not whether that's good or bad. I mean, it's kind of like if you believe that there's a magic fairy that, will smite you if you step out of line. Well, that's not a good reason for believing it, that it stops people from doing bad things. Really, we should be believing in things because they're true, not because they have a functionally useful thing. But I do notice a level of condescension of other people, a lack of empathy towards other people, and he really does get into that in this video, and I'll be going through it and sort of talking about why I think he's really this is not apologetics worthy of somebody with a doctorate in philosophy, quite frankly, in my opinion. I mean, that's just my opinion, but you may agree, you may not. That's cool. That's fine. So here we go. David Wood being, well, David Wood, really.
Atheism is a joke with no punchline, told by a comedian who's about to get booed off stage.
Really? No, it's a position on a proposition. This is the thing. This is the thing. I mean, I think he really is just pandering to his audience here. Atheism is a joke. Well, no, not really. What are you talking about? Like, to sort of start off with that level of condescension is just sort of this is a guy with a doctorate in philosophy. Just hello, Carlos. Good to see you. Good to see you, Al. I hope you're feeling well. Good to see you, buddy. Really good to see you. Yeah, so he starts off, atheism is a joke. Well, no, it's no joke. I mean, you may disagree with it, but it's not a joke. Hope as well with all the reads. Yeah, it's been a rough time recently, just with a few personal things coming up and a few things with the wife coming up. Nothing serious, just just stuff I've had to do and we've had to cope with, and we've had to we've had to go see her step parents and stuff, and step parents, my parents-in-law, and just, you know what, there's something about going back to your childhood home that is always just it just doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? Like, I've been back to my childhood home and it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't. It just feels like you're back at home as a child and it's not a great fit. Does anybody else get that, or is that just me and her? I don't know. It's just been a bit of a wild ride, but that's okay. But thank you so much, Barnaby. I really appreciate it. For $5. Hope all is well with the reads and all near and dear associates. Yeah, pretty much. It's just been stressful recently. Just a few things happening, and have to get on top of it. But hey, it happens. It happens. All I can do is just try as hard as I can. If I could try any harder, I'd be doing it. So I do what I can. But thank you, Barnaby. I really appreciate it. So yeah, this is sort of a it's kind of like saying I think he's really going, well, atheists say Christianity is a joke. It's just this. It's just that. Yeah, but why are you indulging in that? I don't think atheism is a joke. I don't think Christianity is a joke. I don't think any belief system is a joke. Even something like flat Earth, I don't think it's a joke to some people. I think, it maybe was a joke on the inception, perhaps. I don't know about that one, but I don't know. That's very strong language, but oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%, Rembrandt. I'm right there with you, mate. I'm right there with you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Some of you are too young to remember atheism before the circus clowns took over and spray painted the new atheism down the side of that crazy.
Yeah, so it's interesting that somebody came into the chat and sort of said, oh, here we go. Bika, you convinced me with your ad hominem fallacy. Yeah, none of that was an actual argument. It was just sort of explaining who David Wood is. It does not in any way say that he's wrong. This is an ad hominem. This is because, like, you may be able to argue, hey, you're doing a like I'm not in a debate. I'm critiquing you. You do get that, don't you? Anyway, so this in an ad hominem where you're trying to say, hey, there's these clowns that did that. Yeah, that's just an argument from insult. Like, nothing I'm saying is insulting David Wood. He's admitted to being a sociopath. It's what he was diagnosed as, and it doesn't make him wrong. I'm not in any way saying he's wrong because of that. He could be the most egregious psychopath or sociopath in the world, and he could still be right. It's just sort of explaining. So what happened with David Wood in the very start, and this is sort of what I'm getting to, and I'll tie it in for you. It's because he sort of was an atheist, and he kind of held other people in contempt, like sort of, I am this atheist that knows better than all these idiots that need religion. And he was really very sort of had this toxic attitude of all the people around him, this superiority. And he's sort of talked about this at length, that he thought that, he was chosen, and he mentioned hearing voices and some other problems kind of thing. So it's not like any of this is actually thing. Hang on, I'll find it. He sort of said that he didn't, like, he thought himself absolutely superior, but I see this level of condescension in him that sort of shows that he still, or I would put it out there that he still does, that he's still sort of denigrating others. And what happened was that he thought himself so superior, he wondered what would happen if he struck his father in the head with a hammer. So with the typical impulsiveness that sociopaths sort of display, he went ahead and did it. And that's what landed him in prison. Sort of this is sort of, to me, it shows that he still does have that level of condescension, just not towards his people, the theists kind of thing, the Christians. He still keeps it towards others, including Islamic people atheists, but this kind of rhetoricism, I think it's beneath somebody with a PhD in philosophy. I think your arguments have got to be better than, oh, a clown car. I mean, come on.
Train. But believe it or not, atheists in the 1980s and 1990s weren't nearly as angry as they've been in recent years. And they didn't usually care a whole lot about what other people believed.
So before the new atheists, okay, all right. So let's unpack this. So atheists didn't used to be as angry. Some were, some weren't. I think that before the new atheists, when there was this, well, let's call it what it is, a mass exodus from Christianity that is currently happening. I think that most people who were atheists were born atheists. They were cradle atheists. They had just always been atheists. The less of the people that had been fundamentalists and had deconverted, because that started happening at the beginning of new atheism. Yeah, and there were, you're right, O'Hare was pretty angry at the way that things were. I do remember her. I think she went on Oprah or something and had a conversation, and it was sort of this really illuminating thing on a woman that refused to budge on certain issues, sort of leave us alone, leave us out of your thing, which was fantastic. But like a lot of the people were just cradle atheists. They didn't. So a lot of the anger that I see, and this is just what I see, I may be wrong, but I see a lot of anger because people have been believing something their entire life, and then they find out there's not a lot of evidence for it, and it's probably complete crap. It's difficult to deal with. It's difficult for anybody to deal with this, being told that they've got this in infinite place and there's this person watching over them, and that person will always watch over them and nothing will go wrong in their life, and if it does, it's all part of this, and then finding out that that is not true. That's not the atheist's fault. That's the fault of the person who's telling them all this stuff. So I can only imagine how upset you would be, and sort of how let down you would be, and how betrayed you would feel by these people that you put your absolute trust and faith in, and then find out, hey, we don't have any good reason for thinking this. I mean, and your answer might be, well, don't leave Christianity. Well, what if it's not true? What if you actually rationally come to the conclusion that it's not true? Should you just believe it because you don't want to feel bad about being given the wrong information? No, of course not. That's a terrible reason to continue with something. I'm certainly not trying to sort of, be that. But I guess what I'm saying is there were still angry atheists around, and perhaps it is the exodus from Christianity, which ex-Christians generally being a bit more angrier than the cradle atheists, the people that were always atheists like myself, because they do feel betrayed by the church, by their religion, by the theists that told them all this stuff, by their parents, and by a society that sort of made them think they have to be religious in order to be a good person, and find out that it's not true. There's plenty of good people out there and they don't have religion. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know for sure. It depends on the individual, but that might have something to do with it. But I don't understand why that's a thing. Like, what does he care?
The general atheist attitude when I was growing up was, look, if believing in Jesus and the Bible and heaven somehow helps you, I'm not your boss. You have fun in church. And go ahead and say a prayer for me if that makes you happy. What do I care?
So it's interesting that it's interesting that David Wood said that while he was growing up, that was the attitude, but he claimed to be an atheist when he was growing up, right? When he was younger, before he went to prison. When he was growing up, he was an atheist, and he didn't have that attitude. He thought everyone was totally inferior to him. And I would warrant, like, sort of, he would have a. I mean, I don't know if David Wood is. I don't know if he particularly gets angry. He doesn't seem to. He doesn't seem to have really a lot of anger at all, but he does seem to have a lot of contempt. And I could be wrong. I can't tell what David Wood is feeling. I can only tell what I observe. But he does seem to have a lot of contempt of people. And I think that the first, 30 seconds of the video has sort of shown that in the way that he talks about people. I think that yeah, no, I totally get that, Reed, and I that makes me sad. I'm sorry to hear that. I really am. It's not right. Yeah, and especially to a child, it's not right. And a lot of people do have that fear come up. So, my thoughts about, or if you're a long time listener, you know my thoughts about anger. To be honest with you, if you're new for the first time, my thoughts about anger is that anger isn't really an emotion. It's a secondary response to a fear or pain emotion. It's one of the two. So that's my stance on anger, that it isn't really a thing. You have to look backwards to where the fear is. And a lot of it is that fear. That fear of going back into the religion, the fear of what Christians are going to do, the way that they've treated you, the pain of that separation from family and friends. A lot of that comes into play, and it can cause this anger response. So, the stereotype of the angry atheist is, like all stereotypes, you shouldn't apply it to everybody. And number two, there may be a justified reason for it. Anger isn't something that is necessarily a bad thing. It's sometimes a very appropriate response to some things. I try to, when I get angry, make it constructive, but I'm only human, like everybody else. But this whole idea that atheists. David was an atheist in his youth when growing up, and that wasn't his response. So I don't know why he's saying that, and I don't think that was anybody's response. Like, pray for me while you're at church. I don't think so. I think that perhaps the pushback against Christians was a lot less because they were in the extreme minority, right? Like, we're talking, how old is he? When was he born? So he's 48 now. Oh, born the same year I am, same year as me. So same age as me. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I grew up in Australia. I can't really compare the two. Religion in Australia is kind of like, yeah, if you're on the God bus, just drive it over there. I don't want to hear about it. It's not the same as in America. But atheists in America were sort of in the minority in that sort of 80s, 90s kind of thing when I was growing up. And people in the minority, they may not push back as hard. Now, as they're getting bigger and bigger, what atheists are realizing is saying, hey, we don't have to let a religious section of the community dictate what's good for us. We don't have to. We have enough power, like voting power, to say, hey, we're not going to let you get away with this stuff anymore. One of the big questions that I'm asking a lot of different atheists, and I do enjoy the answer to, is how do you break it to the Christians that they're not in charge anymore? How do you explain to them that just because they are the Christian church, whatever church that may be, whether it's Catholic or evangelical, that they don't get to dictate morality, they don't get to dictate how people should behave or live or what laws are? They don't get to do that anymore. That we're going to base it upon well-being, right? It's sort of well-being and sort of flourishing of society, human well-being, and that's essentially what we want to base it on. Now, you can jump up and down and say, "Oh, well, my God disagrees." We're going to push back against that because we don't believe that your God exists. Until your God is actually coming down and dictating anything, it's tough. because I don't think the Bible was dictated by a God. I think it was dictated by a person. So it's a question. How do you let the religious sort of, you know, theocrats and, you know, understand that they don't get a more say in our society because they claim to have a God speaking in their ear? They don't. They get as much, you know, I'm not saying they should not get a voice. They should absolutely get a voice, the same as everybody else. And as atheism gets more and more people are irreligious or not no religion, they have to understand that it's not up to them anymore. They don't have any other power at all.
There were, of course, some aggressive atheists, the kind that made people wonder, how are these guys so perpetually enraged at someone they don't believe exists? But there were barely enough of them to be annoying.
Oh, so there were angry atheists around, just you didn't find out if you didn't think they were annoying because there weren't enough of them. Wow. You know, people just saying what they believe just because it contradicts. So what we have here is that atheism has grown. There's no doubt about that. And no religion is the fastest growing demographic as far as religiosity goes. There is. It's growing immensely. People are leaving churches because they are not functioning well. They're not addressing all of these scandals, all of these horrible things that they've done, the horrible things that they say, the horrible ways that they treat people. People have been leaving in droves because they want better than that. You know, the whole idea, oh, well, it's growing, so now they're, you know, annoying because there's lots of them. What are you talking about? Wow. Oh, hello, tiny pink penguin. I'm going to shout you out just because, sorry, I just have to do one thing. Okay. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I think they're funny. I kind of, I like AP. I think that they're kind of, I don't know. I kind of think that, um, I kind of think that David Wood may be using Apostate Prophet, but then again, Apostate Prophet might be using David Wood. I don't know. I don't know their relationship, but it's just a team up that I probably would not do in a million years. I don't think that David Wood is a particularly good person at all.
Atheists back then got along with Christians. They had friendly conversations with Christians. They didn't lose their minds whenever anyone disagreed with them about anything.
Yeah, so we still have friendly conversations with Christians now. Yeah, there's atheists that'll be really rude and obnoxious, but there's Christians that'll be rude and obnoxious. I mean, if you want to see rude and obnoxious, just watch Darth Dawkins at work. Wow, that guy is so obnoxious. Like, really. And the level of apologetics that we're getting in sort of my field is just horrific from the Christians. Like, you know, sort of name calling and yelling and screaming. And, you know, I've been in some chat rooms where the person swearing, you know, up and down has been the Christians. I think that you're really painting with a broad brush. I have seen some horrific behavior from Christians, and I've seen some really good behavior from atheists. So I don't, you know, I've seen some horrible behavior, sure, but so I think what generally happens is that the breakdown has been, and so let me give you an example of what happened. People like Sam Harris, Matt Delahunty, All of these amazing debaters came out, and after them came the presup. Now, presup isn't really so much of as an apologetic as it is a way to frustrate the objections of atheists. That's basically how it's been described by one of the presuppers, as just a way to shut down the conversation so that they can't appeal to rationality, they can't appeal to all of these things, they can't appeal to morality. You've just claim all of them up front, shut down the conversation, be as obnoxious as possible, and just shut it all down. Like, if you can't win the chess match, burn the board is essentially what they're doing. And so that sort of level of obnoxiousness came out, and you did see a pushback on it. You did see atheists, when confronted by a presupper, just be as mean, and I don't blame them. Dare you? No, American level of rude and obnoxious. I don't know. It's I've met some English people that are pretty rude and obnoxious, though.
They didn't spend every waking moment posting "Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy."
Okay, can you guess what makes David Wood angry here? Anybody take a rough guess? Anybody just take a rough guess?
Fact: if you're an atheist today and you were somehow able to jump into a time machine fueled by 1.21 jerkawatts of narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah, I don't know why you're bringing up narcissistic personality disorder. That seems like, if you're claiming all atheists are narcissistic, or even these people are narcissistic, I think that's a bit of a stretch. Now, so why do people use Sky Daddy? Okay, so why do people use that? And it is a straw man of David's position. I get that. It's a bit of a straw man. If I may use it, if people are straw manning things like evolution, or they're straw manning my position on atheism, or they're straw manning me on something else, I may use that term, but not until I'm pushed by an obnoxious Christian. No, he really doesn't like it. So the reference that it's basically referring to is the origin of Yahweh, right? The origin of Yahweh. So what apologists don't like you to talk about is the origin of Yahweh in the sort of the more Bronze Age near Middle East. Yahweh was originally part of a pantheon. His brother Baal was also part of the pantheon. He was not the leader of the pantheon. That was El. Now, El was the chief of the gods, the Canaanite sort of pantheon. Yahweh was the storm god of that pantheon. So a bit like Thor, kinda, not really, but a bit. Just that he had control over the clouds and storms and things like that. And that that being was assimilated over time with El, the chief of the gods. So it was Yahweh El, who was the father of Yahweh. So the whole point was that Yahweh was the god of the sky, and the El was the father figure of the gods. So those two together does make a sky father. And that's a really good point, Reed. I didn't even think of that either. They say it too, our Father who art in heaven. Yeah. But see, here's the thing. And this is where it gets confusing, and it's still kind of the straw man, because I would imagine that David would be sort of saying, well, my God is Jesus, who is, and here's where it gets confusing. And I don't know who understands this logic, but for some reason that's the same as the Father, but a different person. Like, it's the God who is Jesus and is the Father, but it is a different person, but the same God, which I don't understand. I've never understood the Trinity. It's never made sense to me. But it is a way to provoke Christians, and it is a bit of a straw man. I will reserve that term if they're being obnoxious and straw manning me. I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If they're going to be obnoxious, I'll call their thing a sky daddy. But if I'm having a civil conversation, I won't sort of stoop to that first. I think that that's something that it's not even it's not even incorrect. I get your read. I'm 100% on board. And considering the origins of Yahweh El, I'm kind of, it kind of is that's the God of the sky and the Father. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, I think that also David Wood suffers from the Streisand effect. If you haven't heard of that, that's where the more you talk about something on the internet, the more you're going to get of it. So him going on the internet to complain about people that don't like him writing Sky Daddy will basically ensure that that's written over and over and over again. Now, I think that David Wood's smart enough to know this. I think he's smart enough to know this. So that suggests to me that what he's trying to do is look for those, because the more comments you have, the more engagement you get. So I think he's perfectly fine with this. I think, like a lot of people who do have sociopathy, I think it is a manipulation of what he's doing. He will do this kind of thing a lot. And it also riles up his audience. They also get very upset. So, he kind of manages to engage and manipulate his audience so it propels him further, which is very smart, but, not very honest, should I say?
And you traveled back in time to 1985, and you told an atheist from 1985 that in the future, atheists are going to spend all their time on social media typing, Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy, Sky.
Okay, so let's take that apart. They spend all their time on social media typing this. All their time. That's all they ever do. They don't eat, they don't sleep, they don't go to the toilet. That's all they do. Like, this is, this might only be a couple of comments from people, here and there. Don't you think that we get people coming onto our channels typing away, you are loved by God, you've just forgotten, or some nonsense like that. Big shout out to Blessed BE. And I don't think that's all their lives. I think that people are nuanced. I think this is just it's kind of just that whole thing of othering people and making them the enemy. He's just trying to appeal to his people to say, hey, these are the enemy, go and get them. It's kind of, is it manipulative? Yeah. Is it dishonest? Oh, hell yeah. I don't think he cares. I think that someone without a sort of that lacks empathy will just go, that's fine. I don't see a problem with that. It gets me what I want. It gets people who want to be angry at atheists what they want. I don't care if it's true or not. And I see a lot of this stuff from him. He doesn't care about the truth of things. He doesn't care about the impact on others. He cares about himself. I mean, maybe he's honest about it.
Daddy, Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy. That 1985 atheist is going to ask you what social media is, and then he's going to throw his Dungeons and Dragons dice right in your face.
No, probably not. I doubt it. I don't think I don't know why they would do that. Why would they care that you're insulting a Christian or offending a Christian? Look, you can offend a Christian by just saying you don't believe in God. That can offend a Christian sometimes. I don't see why I would change my behavior because you're offended by it. I'm really sorry that you're offended by it, David, but it's not offensive. It might be a slight straw man, but that's not the worst straw man I've seen in an argument, mate. I I think you're a little sensitive here. Either that or you're manipulating your audience, one of the two. Because like that isn't even like, as Reed pointed out, you pray saying, "Oh Father, thou art in heaven." It's a father in the sky. I don't see how that's particularly, you know, thing. Yeah, and here's the thing: were you a geek back then or a nerd back then? Because a real Dungeons and Dragons player wouldn't throw their manuals under any circumstances. Do you know how much those things cost? They weren't cheap. We would not throw them. No. No. Wow. Can I just point out, I've got somewhere, I've got a bag of holding. It's like this massive bag for my D&D stuff. I've got it in a cupboard somewhere or something. Like, it's called a bag of holding. I love it so much. You would not throw your D&D manuals under any circumstances. No, absolutely not. Like, you know, I still remember the second edition D&D manuals that I had. The pages were worn from reading it over and over. Hell, I can even tell you how much damage a longsword does. It does 1d8. Can you say the same, David? Can you give me the damage of, say, oh, let's see. Give me the damage of a dagger. I challenge you. I challenge you.
Tell you to get a life. So, what happened to atheism? Who fed that cute little mogwai after midnight and then poured Miracle Grow and Red Bull all over the gremlin?
What? It's still the same thing. There you go. There you go. 1d4 it is. Oh yes, the dreaded Thaco. To hit at armor class 0. So technically it's Thac 0, but you know, we're splitting hairs. Big shout out to my second edition D&D players out there. And the geek shall inherit the earth.
I'll tell you exactly what happened. And once you understand the rise of the new atheism, you'll see why its run is coming to an end and why Christians are about to have not one, but two fun new arguments against atheism.
Why do I think this is going to be incredibly inaccurate? Well, he actually swapped prison for Christ, Sabracadabra. He actually stopped prison for Christ, essentially. Yeah. Yep. I don't know. It's difficult to know whether David would actually believes that a God exists or not, because he never really talks about it. I think that perhaps it is practical, and it is like he's learned that through some very hard lessons that if you want to have a life that he wants, there's certain things he has to do. And it would not surprise me to find out that he is just doing whatever is expected in order to get the life that he wants. Yeah, I don't think that I would be shocked to find that out. I think he is very, very smart and has figured out, hey, if I say these things and do these things, I can make money and have a life that I want off this. I don't know if he actually believes it. He may very well do. I don't know. I just don't know. But it's interesting to me that nearly all of the stuff that I've seen of his isn't about whether a God exists. It's about whether it's good for society that we think he exists. So, you know, I think he has a very contemptuous view of humanity. Sort of, you know, humanity can't, you know, it can't function without somebody telling it what to do and believing in a God. You know, it can't possibly function.
So let's discuss the new atheism's explosive growth since the early 2000s, its failed predictions, our fun new arguments, and the future of atheism.
No, Sabracadabra, not a psychopath. He's a sociopath. It is different. there's a lot different about it, but still the same lack of empathy that we come to expect from antisocial personality disorders. I totally understand, but it's very important that we do distinguish the distance. Generally, and this is very generally speaking, sociopaths are generally more dangerous than psychopaths. You can have high functioning psychopaths that you would never know, but what? No, as I pointed out, I don't have a degree. I don't. That's what I pointed out earlier. So yeah, but this is all sort of. I mean, David Wood talks about having antisocial personality disorder. I don't understand. It's not me analyzing him. It's him saying it. That doesn't make him a bad person. There's plenty of people with psychopathy and sociopathy that are very capable and good members of society. And yeah, I think that in order for he's a diagnosed psychopath. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Seems to be conflicting with what it says on Wikipedia. It definitely could be the case. Definitely could be the case. I'm not 100% sure there. But either sociopathy or psychopathy, that they both lack empathy. But yeah, well, generally the sociopath is the more dangerous one. So psychopaths are can be very high functioning and fit in well with society.
Why did the new atheism become so popular after the 9/11 attacks?
I don't think it did. When did 9/11 happen? What was the year of that? Yeah, that was 2001. The new atheist movement was well underway before that, as far as I know. It sort of is new atheism. Yeah, like secular humanist Paul Kurtz, founder for the Center of Inquiry, is a forerunner for the new atheism movement. Let's see. I guess it picked up steam after then, but 2001. Yeah. So Sam Harris published The End of Faith, Terror, and the Future of Reason in 2004, I think. Yeah, and God Delusion was 2008. Okay, so it did seem to ramp up around them, but I don't think it was really that much to do with 9/11. I don't see that T being crossed there. It may have had an influence on it, but I don't think you can say that that's the cause. I think that there is sort of.
Three reasons.
Yeah.
First, Westerners were jolted out of their tolerant slumber by a series of attacks carried out by people screaming Allahu Akbar. The new atheists used these attacks to say, see, this is what religion does.
Yeah, that was because of religion. I mean, it was also because of politics, but the fact that people were willing to die for their religion kind of thing, because they were willing to believe in paradise afterwards, was really a wake up for everybody concerned that, hey, religious people were capable of doing horrendous things because they believed in a promise after the next life. Yeah.
Science flies you to the moon. Religion flies you into buildings.
Sure.
But they didn't just send people into a panic over Islam. They also...
Well, I don't think they sent people into a panic over Islam. I think that the Christians were more pivotal at people panicking over Islam. It's just their narrative was, oh, look what Islam does, kind of thing. That's what Muslims do. I think that, to blame people for the sort of Islamic panic of the 2001 onwards, I think you would have to look at the right-wing Christians for that, like Fox News going on about it.
Said, and don't think that other religions are much better. Christians are about to elect leaders who are going to impose Christianity on the rest of us.
Well, I've read Project 2025, or at least some of it. It's depressing. You're talking about taking away contraception because of your religion. You're talking about taking away a woman's right to choose because of your religion. You're talking about all of these religious implementations of stuff. So it's not out of sort of just, they're allowed to say it if somebody's actually proposing it to happen. And let's look at the attempted control over education in the southern states, which, the Texas Board of Education famously famously has been trying to stamp out evolution in their curriculum. So yeah, the religious people have been influencing politics, but I don't think the new atheists, I don't think that they've sort of been fear-mongering, as you're trying to say. That's just an appeal to emotion. It's like, well, you don't like this thing. They've been panic-mongering. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think that people with, more on the very, very far right, who are very religious fundamentalists, are actually trying to get policies implemented that are religious. I don't know why you would sort of attempt to deny that. That's incredible.
Christians are about to use democracy to end science and to establish a Christian theocracy.
Well, no, that's not what they said. It's kind of what they're saying is that they're trying to use their religious beliefs to filter the curriculum for students when it should just be science. We're talking about evolution here. They didn't say all science. Like, this is just again a straw man. He's just building it way out of proportion. Which is odd, because he's claiming that the new atheists did the same thing. He's claiming, oh, they blew it out of all proportion. No, you're blowing it out of all proportion. They were very, very accurate in how they described what was happening in these southern states, what was happening, and some of the people that I have talked to want to have a theocracy. Some of the Christians. Now, they're in the very, very, very minority. I get that. I'm not painting with a broad brush, but you are. And they never said what you're claiming that they said.
And the only way to stop it is for millions of people to leave Christianity and become atheists. So,
no, that kind of just happened. So a lot of the things that he's leaving out as well, a lot of the things that has happened that he's leaving out of the reasons why people left churches and stuff. A lot of it happened around that time as well, right? So around the early 2000s as well was the Catholic altar boy scandal. Let's just put it that way, or else I'll get demonetized. Let's put it that way. Okay, that it began to really ramp up about the early 2000s. Like, it started to come up about the 80s, 90s, but then by the early 2000s, people were aware. And it wasn't just the Catholic Church, it was also lots of different churches. This was an absolute shock to some people. I have family that's Catholic, and they were absolutely shocked by the cover-ups that happened and the immorality that had been going through these churches. You add to that things like Ted Haggard, that was doing all these horrible things, and all of these scandals. In the past, may not have gotten a huge amount of attention, because generally what happened was, well, if something happened in the church, you kept it in the church. The church would deal with it. It was the church's thing. The sort of march towards secular justice has meant that these things have come out for the public at large, and not just, hey, well, these parishioners know about it over here, but let's not tell the other churches, you know. So yeah, I really think that it was a lot of things that happened. Also, what happened was the AIDS scandal in Africa, where, you know, the AIDS, we realized that the people of Africa had been denied condoms and things like that, and the fundamentalist preaching of the evangelicals over there that caused us witch to be. There was a lot of different scandals that contributed to people leaving the churches and leaving religion. And yes, the New Atheists, they absolutely helped, but they didn't make it as, you know, they didn't say, hey, millions of people have got to leave the church, that's the only way to stop them. They just presented a world that didn't need a church. That's it. And said, hey, if you think that their morality is bad, why are you still with them? If they're doing things that the church says are objectively right morally, and you don't agree with that thing, then what are you doing in that church? Oh, I'm so sorry, Robin. I came out. I was sort of came out to I was in a sort of a share place. People sitting around. I thought it was a movie. I honestly thought it was a movie. And somebody said that's happening right now, and I'm like, what? It mind blowing. No, I totally get you. It was a surreal feeling. We did have a person from the US with us, and you know, you can imagine how helpless they felt being in another country. They went straight home, kind of thing. Oof.
The New Atheists saw that people were alarmed. They used that alarm to send people into a panic about religion in general. Second,
yeah, I don't think they did. I think that people understood that Christians weren't necessarily bombing towers or doing these kind of things, but the Christians had their own problems, like the scandals that I mentioned. It was also a whole series of debates and talking with people where the Christians kind of got absolutely destroyed in these debates. Hitchens would absolutely destroy people. Sam Harris was very good at it. Daniel Dennett was very good at it. You know, even Richard Dawkins was a kind of decent-ish debater. He was more a scientist, but yeah, I mean, he had some really good points. And you know, you're sort of getting upset because they did better than the people representing you. And as somebody pointed out, I think, you know, he kind of did really poorly against Matt Delahunty. Don't blame the opposition for that.
the emergence of social media allowed the New Atheists to use a certain low-level manipulation tactic on a global scale. What's the manipulation tactic?
Does this feel like this big conspiracy theory? It's like, no, the New Atheists just presented the case that God doesn't exist. That's it. There's no reason to believe it. It's sort of like saying, well, I don't like what you're saying, so it's a big conspiracy and you're manipulating people that you present that argument. No, the manipulation is when churches use leverage on people, like, fear of hell and sort of, trying to take away their friends and family in order for them to stay with that church. That's manipulation. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I think David Wood is a manipulative guy. He is. I mean, the loaded language that he's using, the conspiracy that he's painting here. the idea that they're just doing it to destroy Christianity is it's awful. It's manipulative. And the fact that he's using the World Trade Center attacks as the reason why Christianity went down. Oh, it wasn't all the scandals and all the terrible things that Christianity did over the early 2000s. No, it's Islam's fault. Yeah, no, it's the fault of Islam. Oh, hey, Berg. Hey, Kada. They are fantastic. Kada is awesome. Much bug love, Kada. Good to see you. It's really good to see you.
Something we've seen over and over again in various forms for many centuries. The basic formula is join this group and you're better than everyone else.
Oh, the irony. Oh, the irony. He says, as he believes being a Christian makes him better than everybody else. The irony. And no, just being an atheist doesn't make you better than anybody else. Like, I don't claim I'm better than anybody else. It's kind of this, well, I believe these things. And if I believe differently than you, then I think I'm superior. No, I just believe in the things that I believe. What should I believe in? The things that you believe and I don't? Like, it's kind of this, and I want to point out this manipulation. He's basically trying to associate having a belief with manipulation, like just simply disagreeing with him. Oh, well, you're trying to manipulate everybody into believing the same as you. Well, yeah, what I'm trying to convince people. How is it a manipulation, David? How is saying, hey, this is what I believe, and these are the arguments for it, and these are the horrible things that this religion has done. How is that in any way a manipulation? Exactly. So you get this a lot from this type of personality. They will try to sort of project what they're doing onto others. Like, he's obviously trying to associate the rise of atheism as some sort of manipulation conspiracy by these people, and sort of make what they've said way more extravagant than what they've actually said. The reason why they're not saying, hey, this is what religion is going to do. The new atheism movement was, we don't see a reason to believe there is a God. That's it. It's not Christians are going to take over the world. It's, we don't think God is true. We don't think he exists. That's it. Yeah, and you're right, ExoMusic. Atheism did exist in about 5000 BC Greece. Yes, it did. Absolutely. People, there were all kinds of atheists back then. There was Epicurus, I believe, was an atheist. There was another couple that can't bring to mind right now. But yeah, there was all kinds of non-believers back then.
In some significant way. We see this constantly from the Dawa gangs. Their message is, if you join Islam, you're strong. If you don't, you're weak. Look at us, we're strong. Other people are little weaklings. The new atheists did.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly dumb. I think that, it's just the idea that you're strong. So a lot of people have done this, and it's always made me baffled. It's always made me absolutely baffled. Yeah, I'll probably get demonetized because of the man boobs, ExoMusic. Probably. I know I will. That's fine. That's fine. I'll bring you the man boobs no matter what. I don't get the idea of physical capacity being equated with your ability to be right. It's sort of like, who was that guy? It was Haas. I don't know if you ever saw him. Modern Day Debate. You might not watch. That's fine. I totally get it. But he was basically somebody that would challenge his opponents to a fight. Like, he challenged people to a fight during the debate. And it's kind of like, would that make you right? Like, just say you did fight and you won. Would that make you right about what you're arguing? No, of course not. You'd still be wrong. Whether or not you're wrong and right has nothing to do with physical prowess. It's whether you are wrong or you're right. Yeah, no, he is a nutter. Absolutely, Sabakdabra. I absolutely, yes. Yeah.
The exact same thing. But their message was, if you join us, you're smart.
Nobody has claimed or has ever claimed that if you join atheism, you'll be smart. No one has ever claimed that. We have arguments based upon reason and logic. We just say, hey, these are the arguments. If you want to join us, that's great. Like, you don't suddenly become smart if you join atheism. That's not what happens. What you can do is improve your critical thinking. And as a consequence, I believe that atheist arguments will become stronger because they're based upon better reasoning and logic. But if you think yours are based on better reasoning and logic, then why don't you encourage people to do critical thinking? Because if your arguments are superior, what does it matter? You're basically, at the moment, all I can see is a guy angry because people are leaving religion because their arguments are not as strong as the other side's. Okay, I mean, I don't know what to do for you. I would say get better arguments, but I think you're wrong. So I don't think there's any better ones out there. And it's always this rehash of old, tired apologetics from Aquinas's day, just rehashed and thrown out and trying to, make work. And people are kind of, yeah, we've seen them before. They're not very reasonable. I'm sorry. Sorry there. Justin Yahooligan, my friend, I found this $2. Is it yours, Mark? Well, considering it's $2 Canadian, I find that very hard to imagine it is. I don't think I've ever owned Canadian currency. I know that you stole Canadian currency from the Australians. Polymer notes were invented by Australians. Although $2 probably isn't a note, it's probably a coin now that I come to think about it. But anyway, that's the whole point. Down the back of the couch, absolutely. But thank you so much, our hooligan. You are a scholar and a gentleman. Okay. That's a good point. What does joining atheism even mean? Yeah, atheism is just a lack of belief in a god. Yeah, so I think he's trying to set it up as atheism is a religion, which is a really baffling thing to do. It's kind of like saying that sleeping is a sport, like it just, I don't, it's very, very weird. Atheism is a religion like abstinence is a sexual position. That's basically where it's at.
If you don't, you're a stupid religitard. What do you want to be? A super smart atheist or a super dumb religitard? You want to be smart? Great. Then join us, and you can make fun of religious people and feel smart.
Yeah, so that isn't what's happening. I don't like this whole thing is just a straw man of what's actually happening. I mean, so Seth Andrews wrote a book that basically said, when I was religious, I talked like an idiot. And I get what he means. Like some of the things that he said made absolutely no sense. And we see that coming from a lot of religious people. However, there's atheists that talk like idiots as well. I mean, you have atheists that just believe in spiritual stuff. I was an atheist when I believed that astrology was a thing and, tarot cards worked and, aromatherapy worked. It makes you no smarter. And here's the other thing. Intelligence is not very well understood for a start. So when we say somebody's intelligent, it kind of is a bit weird what we mean. But there is not necessarily a correlation between intelligence and being correct about something. Okay, so for instance, Newton, Sir Isaac Newton was a genius. He invented calculus, absolute genius. There is no question that he was incredibly intelligent. he also wanted to turn lead into gold and thought alchemy worked. Okay? Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're right. Just because you're right doesn't mean you're smart. You're trying to correlate and make the two things exactly the same, and they're not. You can be the smartest person in the world and still be wrong. You can be the dumbest person in the world and still be right. It's not about being smart. It's about whether you have a rational, justifiable reason to believe what you believe. And then, if you want to share your rational, justifiable reasons, by all means. But your main argument seems to be, well, religion is, or God exists because society would be bad without it. Here's the thing, that's an argument from consequence. It doesn't matter what the outcome's going to be. It doesn't make it true or false. It's like saying, well, my wife couldn't have cheated on me because that would destroy our marriage. It doesn't matter what the consequence is. It is either true or not, independent of what the consequences are. It's just you seem to think that the consequences of people knowing that it's not true, perhaps. I mean, I don't know if you actually believe it or not. I've said that before, so I won't rehash it. But you're sort of saying, well, the consequences of people thinking it's not true are too grievous that we've got to convince everybody it's true. No, that's a terrible reason for doing that. Yeah, Hooligan member for 11 months. Joining Mark Reed Atheism is something you can do. It is something you can do. And thank you for your 11th month membership. Awesome. Yeah, he comes across, he sort of comes across as a not too proficient YouTube sort of, I don't know, inflammatory sort of apologist, one of those people that sort of Kent Hovind that throws out these things. It is sort of, to me, it is unbecoming of a PhD philosopher, because if I can pick these arguments apart, a person who's actually got another PhD philosopher will absolutely wreck them. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
You can even come to the next Reason Rally, where we sit around and pat ourselves on the back for being so into science.
Yeah, it's a Reason Rally. Do you have a problem with reasoning? Is there a problem with reasoning? I don't, we are a significant proportion of the population. So why shouldn't we have rallies and meetings and have all the things that everybody else gets? Even people who play water polo get meetings. Why don't we? Exactly. What's the problem with that? Should we be exempt from meeting? You don't have a monopoly on meetings and socializing and all of these things. It's like, well, if you're not in my religion, you shouldn't be able to meet up and talk about what you believe to be true. But this is sort of him complaining that we're having meetings and talking with one another and being humanists, right? Because this isn't AmericanAtheist.org. This is humanism. This is an actual belief structure. Is it a religion? I wouldn't call it a religion, but it definitely is a structure of beliefs. Humanism is definitely that. So your objection to this. So just after saying, hey, you're trying to say that religious people are trying to, impose their religion on others, he complains about other people simply meeting up to discuss their beliefs. That's it. What? Why? Because it's not Christian. Just simply because it's not Christian. But he doesn't want to place, any kind of, his theology doesn't want to, impose itself on anybody else. No, but he objects to people simply meeting up. Yeah, it doesn't. There seems to be a contradiction there.
This is pathetic, but the movement had the advantage of social media. They got to use this approach on billions of people and millions of people.
I'm sorry, did the Christians not have access to social media? Did the Catholic Church not have a Twitter account? Is there something I'm missing? Did your church not have access to Facebook for some reason? I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you guys had access to all the same media that we did. And I might add, you guys also have television stations and meeting halls and all kinds of stuff. Oh, sorry, Robin. Yeah, absolutely. Robin Webster, member for 10 months. Thank you so much, Robin. You're an angel, metaphorically, not literally. Yeah, I have a free one too. Please hit like. Yes, please hit like. It helps me out so much. But I remember the atheist experience and this episode of it. This was many years ago, like years and years and years ago, where somebody called up and said, "Hey, how come you get to come on this show and talk about religion, kind of thing?" And I will always remember Tracy Harris going, "Are you joking? You've got all the money, all the churches, all the meeting halls, all of the television stations running 24-hour God, and they're coming on one little show in Austin, Texas, to say, hey, you shouldn't be allowed to have this." I mean, how privileged do you have to be to sort of have all of this infrastructure, all of this money, all of this stuff right now, and go, but you took advantage of social media? Oof. It's appalling. So what? Kick them all off YouTube, right? Right, David? Kick them all off YouTube. Have them banned from everywhere. They don't deserve to be on a platform. They're atheists. It's tough. So at some point, and I will point to the Pew Research that did statistical analysis of the deconversion that's currently happening. By the latest 2070, America, or the US, United States of America, will no longer be a majority Christian country. My country is already not a majority Christian country. They're only 40% over here. No religion is also about 40%. So you have to prepare yourself for when people who believe in God no longer have the majority in the country. And it's not like we're going to go, okay, now let's get, Christianity like you're doing to atheism. You're trying to vilify and stuff. Of course not. Not all Christians are the same. Some are totally cool. Some are absolutely horrific. We're not going to, but I think that is something to be reminded of. And I'm always reminded of Nelson Mandela and him taking over South Africa. You can't, at some point, you've got to stop the persecution of the people opposite you. To me, this is just the floundering of a religion that is currently dying. It's just the death throes. They're just, lashing out at whoever's around them as they struggle for relevance. I mean, what's the relevance of Christianity now? Nobody's going to. I mean, when I say nobody, I mean nobody in any secular country is going to Christianity for moral guidance. The last place people would go for moral guidance is the Pope or some kind of pastor or something. It's just not happening. But you're entitled to your religion. No one's taking it from you. It's just you're basically complaining that people have been convinced by good arguments that God doesn't exist. I don't know what to say to that.
Fell for it. We want to be smart, so we'll join your group. What do we have to do now?
No, they don't. They're not saying, hey, we want to be smart. They're saying, hey, those are good arguments. And the Christians don't seem to have anything to present in the way of evidence that actually shows the God to exist. It would be trivial for a God to just show up, do something, and convince everybody in a second. but they don't. And for some reason they won't. Take it up with your God. Tell him, hey, we need to, like, really, if this is the level of evidence God can display, take it up with him. Pray for it. Apparently, if two or more Christians pray for something in the Bible, it will happen. So just have you and your buddy pray that God provides better evidence for you that will convince everybody. And when it doesn't happen, turn to your buddy and ask him why he's not praying hard enough. How about that? I don't know. It's weird. It's weird that you're sort of blaming atheism for having compelling arguments. It's weird. You're weird.
Oh, just spend every waking moment making fun of people with Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy. And that makes us smart? Yeah. That makes
No, it doesn't. I don't know why you would think that. Even if you have the most amazing argument ever for atheism or, against God, it doesn't make you smart. So this whole idea that whether you're right or whether you're wrong hinges on your intelligence, it's a mistake. It's absolutely a mistake. I don't know why he believes that intelligence means that you're right or wrong. He probably sort of thinks that intelligence is a great deal he probably thinks it's a bigger indicator of your worth than I would. I don't think that pure intelligence is a measure of a person's worth. I think that it makes you good at certain things, sure, but I don't think it automatically makes you more worthy or better than somebody else or better than anybody. It's very, very strange to think that way. To me, anyway. Obviously, I don't know what David Wood thinks, but he seems to have this big objection about people thinking atheism make you smart, and that ain't what people are thinking. We can probably prove that. Give people an intelligence test while they're in Christianity, and then after they deconvert to atheism. I'm willing to bet that it's exactly the same. But I mean, I don't want to put words in the mouth, but David seems like the type of person to me to think that, your IQ drops as soon as you join atheism. But I don't know that for sure. It just seems that way to me.
makes you smart. Sure does, doesn't it? Third, because of the first two factors, panic and manipulation, the new atheism became what we might call evangelical atheism.
No, it wasn't panic and manipulation. It was simply the church. The church done screwed up, dude. Like, seriously. Like, all of the problems that they have, they do not have atheists to blame for that. Like, all of the scandals, all of the terrible stuff that happened, all of the stuff they did in Africa, that is nothing to do with atheism, sir. And this whole thing of, hey, we see a religion get out of control, that is not fear-mongering manipulation. That's what actually happened.
Theism. There was a strong emphasis on winning converts. Not all ideologies strive to convert people. Christianity does, Islam does. Atheism didn't much until the new atheism took over.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Strive to convert people to atheism? I don't think that it did. I don't like hey, some people might have, hey, I got to get people out of this religion, especially if it's a very cult-like religion, like you get Dwell Church or some of the Mormons. I would like to see people leave. And the what is it? The Seventh-day Adventists are particularly bad. I don't think some of the other Christian denominations are. Some of the Southern sort of Baptist and some of the Baptist ones are pretty terrible. But it's not so much joining us as leaving the religion. Like it's a terrible sect that's very harmful. Other ones, it's just like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, if you're just a mainstream Anglican in England, Church of England, and you don't particularly do anything, it's just like, yeah, well, I don't care. If you're um a very fundamentalist Baptist that is trying to control the curriculum of your state to get evolution and sort of mainstream geology removed for your quite frankly insane 6,000 to 10,000-year-old Earth hypothesis, well, yeah, then we've got a problem. Then I want you to leave, yes. Because, wow. Oh, it's just,
Then atheists became obsessed with getting the entire world to agree with them, which really makes no sense from an atheist perspective.
No, not really. The entire world, no. But secularism was already on its way in by then. In fact, it had been for quite some time. The whole idea that the state should be secular started off with the founding of the United States. The sort of freedom of religion was one of the founding keystones, and that's because the founding fathers generally, and not a lot of them were theists. Most of them were deists, which is a different story altogether than theism. Deism, I mean, a deist, there's not a lot of disagreement you have with a deist. I mean, you're like, hey, this shows evolution. They say, sure. You say, hey, this shows the Earth is, 4.6 good. They say, sure. There's no real disagreement with a deist. They will just say, hey, but I believe it's a God that kicked it all off. Okay. Great. I don't know how you would, falsify that, but sure. I mean, we could have a discussion about how they know that God actually exists. And that can be a discussion, but all in all, what they're doing is what I'm doing. It's basically looking at the world around us and say, hey, how do we make it a better place? Not looking at the God and saying, hey, what does the God want? Because to a deist, the God doesn't want anything. It just kicked it all off, and we're left to do the best we can with what we got. So it's not really a problem with deists. The problem with theists, because instead of looking around and saying, hey, how do we make this world a better place? They're going, well, no, this world is not working as God intended. You've got to do X, Y, and Z because I think my scar daddy, I love that triggers him, sort of, determined it to be so. Okay, well, show your God, have them come to make an argument for it. No? Okay, well, cool story. I don't know what to say to that. But yeah, it's just this weird thing of atheism isn't a religion. It's not evangelical. It's not trying to convert people. Like, what we do is we try to encourage critical thinking because that is the best way to evaluate the world around us. It's sort of the whole realm of science and what we use it for science. If you're critically thinking and come up with a God, I don't, go for it. But if you're critically thinking and deconvert, well, don't blame me for that. Wow. I suppose he's just angry because so many people have been deconverting, like tons of people. But that's okay. Your religion will go on without it. You just might not be as, influential as you used to be. And that's okay. That's life.
Christians proselytize because these are matters of eternal significance in Christianity. Muslims proselytize because these are matters of eternal significance in Islam. Why would atheists suddenly care so much about convincing everyone to agree with their worldview?
Because we think it's true. We think there is no God, or we don't know there is a God, and just say, hey, you don't know either. And because we've got to make laws and implement policy that affects all of us. So why shouldn't we have a voice in what affects all of us? This is the whole thing about theists that I often find. They're sort of like, well, we're claiming to have, a voice from an immortal God being that's all powerful, and so are they, and so are they. Why would you want to, influence politics and change policy? Because we live here too. Because it's our lives too. Why wouldn't we want to be able to express ourselves, express our beliefs, and be able to contribute to how the society is run based upon our beliefs? You think that's the only people that are allowed to do that are theists, and everybody else is excluded? Well, I've got news for you, David. You don't get a special place. The Christians aren't special anymore. They're not. We get a voice as well. And we're not taking away your voice. You can have it, but you don't get the privileged place of being special over everybody else anymore. Doesn't happen. Tough. It's tough. You're going to have to deal with that in some way that makes you at least content, because that's what's happening.
Well, if atheism is the only thing that can save the world from religion, then salvation is found only in atheism. So preach, Brother Dawkins, preach, Brother Hitchens, preach, Brother Harris.
You forgot Dan Dennett. You forgot Dan Dennett. So these were the four horsemen of the new atheism. They did a whole load of debates, very good debates. I think that the only salvation is atheism. Absolutely not. I don't know what that means. I don't know what salvation means. I don't believe that we need religion. Why wouldn't I argue the case? If I believe that you can be perfectly moral without a God, why wouldn't I argue that case? It sounds like he's more opposed to free speech than anything else. Hey, you have beliefs, but you can't express them because you're an atheist. Yeah, no, we've had that in the past, which is probably why they weren't as annoying to you, because they were silenced. And everybody, the whole idea that you're advocating silencing atheists because you find them annoying personally, tough.
Atheism became evangelical. They promised a kind of salvation, the salvation of the world.
No, it didn't. Atheism didn't become anything. You may say that secular humanism became evangelical. I will say, hey, yeah, I think that secular humanism is a really good way to look at the world, sure. But secular humanism is not atheism. It is secular, but it is not atheism. So this is the problem. This is a PhD philosophy major, presumably. I not understanding the difference between secular humanism and atheism. We are promoting secular humanism. Atheism is different, right? There's atheists who believe in spirituality. They believe in ghosts and maybe magic fields or psychic links and things like that. That's an atheist. They don't believe in a God, but they believe in other stuff. They're not a secular humanist because they, are not being secular. They're not being independent of any kind of religion or spirituality. It's a very, very simple to understand. But I don't know why the promotion of secular humanism scares you so much. If it's compatible with your religion, which I think it probably is, I don't know the problem. It's because you personally think people need to believe in God in order to be a good person. Well, I don't care. I don't care that you personally believe that. I can show you a lot of evidence of why that's not true. I know a lot of good people that are atheists, so I know that that's not true. But for some reason, it's almost like a religious faith.
And by taking advantage of people's growing concerns over religion and using social media to amplify a simple manipulation tactic, millions of people joined the new atheism. But there were three problems which led to the
millions of people joined the new atheism. I don't think it was ever an official movement. Like, it wasn't a movement. It was just a description of the sort of style that we had coming out of, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, Christopher Hitchens, just the more confrontational atheism that demanded to be recognized as a group of people in the world. It wasn't an official thing. And there isn't a new atheism group. It's just secular humanism is the group. There might be atheist organizations, but they're very, very loosely knit. They're not new atheism in particular. They're just groups of people. It's very, very odd.
The eventual decline of the new atheism. First, the new atheists had an absurdly simplistic view of the world. Religion is bad, so get rid of religion. It rarely crossed their minds to have a deeper understanding of the various roles a religion plays.
It's not all religion is bad. I don't think it's all religion is bad, but I think that it's based more upon the extremes that we see. And if your religion is misrepresenting reality, so if you're basically saying that this God exists and it doesn't, then it's not good in the long run to believe that to be the case. It's just not great. Because if you believe something about reality that is not true, you're more likely to believe other stuff is not true. And let's face it, what's the current crisis that Christianity is facing? The current crisis is basically flat Earth. Because so many people believe in flat Earth that are also religious. Some churches are literally being split down the middle by the flat Earth belief. The flat earthers are going off and forming their own churches, kind of thing. Oh, George, look, George, if you want to debate, I'm open to debates. My email address is there. Don't come in. I sure I have a message saying don't come in and try and debate me in chat, because seriously, I don't have the time nor the inclination right now. But if you want to debate, I'll set one up. That's not a problem. That is not a problem in the slightest.
In a society. The closest parallel I can think of to this simplistic thinking is in the realm of ecology. Ecology is the science that deals with connections among living organisms and between organisms and their environments. Here's how stupid human beings are. A human being will move to a place that has no rabbits and say to himself, you know what this place needs? Some rabbits. Rabbits would be fun to shoot. Then he'll bring in some rabbits. This sort of thing has happened repeatedly in human history, but right now I'm thinking of Thomas Austin bringing European rabbits to Australia in...
Yeah, and this happened. They brought rabbits to basically hunt, and they went out of control because they did not understand ecology and things like that. And I think this guy, I mean, what was his name? I think he was probably a Christian. Christians sort of did whatever they want back then, because, I mean, I'm not blaming them. They didn't know about ecology and sort of stuff like that.
Thomas Austin bringing
Thomas Austin. But I mean, I can bring up stupider stuff than that. Yeah, his first fleet. Yeah. Oh, actually, he was generally noted for the introduction of rabbits in 1859, even though rabbits had been brought previously by the first fleet. So no, he wasn't the first. It's just one of those things that people say. Did he make things worse? Probably, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He introduced hares, blackbirds, thrushes, and he was breeding English wild rabbits and partridges because he wanted to hunt. Because people back then didn't understand ecology. They didn't understand any of that stuff. Sort of adaptation to ecosystems was only something we understood when Darwin was around.
European rabbits to Australia.
Can I just point out, like, this is just hilarious. Somebody coming in and saying this is rage bait when, like, David Wood has done all of this. It's actually hilarious, and just the arrogance to expect somebody to stop a stream to debate you in the chat is just hilarious to me. I mean, seriously, could you go out and find some more privilege? I don't think you've got enough. Like, I don't think you've got enough egocentrism there. I think you've got to find some more. That's actually hilarious to me. Wow.
1859. He thought rabbits would be fun for him and his friends to hunt in Australia, and they were.
Yeah.
So what's the problem? Well, rabbits had no natural predators in Australia.
Yeah, that's only something we understood after we did. I've got a better one for you. So basically, they had this I think it was a lice or some kind of insect that fed on sugarcane, right? Because sugarcane wasn't natural to Australia, so there was something that fed on the sugarcane. So they introduced a wasp to eat it. And the wasps got out of control because, of course, they had no natural predators. And so they introduced the cane toad to eat the wasps. And so the cane toads got out of control as well. So that's a double sort of introduction. And now the cane toads are absolutely devastating on everything and have the added disadvantage of being absolutely poisonous. And I do mean poisonous. They're not venomous, they're poisonous. Nothing can eat them. They are, and it's really weird because in like northern Queensland kind of thing, people will lick the cane toads. It's just madness. It's madness. They are so toxic. And sort of it's this whole thing. I fail to see what this has got to do with atheism or Christianity. I really don't, because through science we now understand the problems with this. Like if you can scientifically show, I don't know what this has got to do with anything.
Australia. Rabbits reproduce very rapidly, and many areas of Australia have moderate climates that allow rabbits to reproduce year-round. The rabbit population exploded so quickly that within 10 years, hunters could kill millions of them every year without noticing any effect.
Yeah, but you know what also is out of control in Australia? The bloody roos. Right, kangaroos have gone crazy. Like you see massive herds of them. They are overpopulated as hell. And emus. So they're native to Australia and they're out of control as well. It's sort of like, well, how come is it we colonized this country, had no idea about the ecosystem, and, sort of all of this bad stuff happened? Do you have a point on this, or is this just a lesson on biodiversity and biosecurity in Australia? Because this is why Australia has such rigorous biosecurity. It's because the ecosystem has been cut off from the rest of the world for so long that any introduced species can be a huge disruption to it. Cats have done way more damage, like just domesticated cats. They have killed so many birds, it's ridiculous. They're hunters. That's what they do. Rabbits are bad, yeah. Foxes were introduced. Like I said, kangaroos, now they haven't got the natural enemies of the Aboriginals who used to hunt them all the time, and emus. They're now sort of breeding out of control as well, but they're native.
On the rabbit population, rabbits would invade an area and eat up all the vegetation, massive loss of plant species. Then the other animals that normally ate those plants wouldn't have any food. They couldn't compete with the rabbits, so loss of animal species. Rabbits would so thoroughly devastate all the vegetation that the topsoil would be exposed to wind and water erosion, so plants couldn't even grow back. It was an ecological disaster.
Okay. What has this got to do with anything you've been talking about?
Pretty easy questions that human beings don't bother to ask. Atheists aren't deeper thinkers than aren't going to affect everything else and lead to destruction. What does this have to do with the new atheists?
Yeah, that's what I've been asking. What the hell are you on about? Like this from a PhD philosophy grad is embarrassing, quite frankly. Like you've basically said, hey, there was an ecological disaster back in the day because we didn't understand how it would affect the environment. What has that got to do with anything?
Easy. The new atheists aren't deeper thinkers than Thomas Austin. They think, I don't like religion, so let's get rid of it. I like atheism, so let's get more of it. And they pay no attention whatsoever to the extremely complex web of connections that they have just forever altered.
Shouldn't the question be whether it's true or not? This is what I mean. He doesn't care about whether the belief is true. He cares about how it affects society. And we have societies with a very low belief in God that are going just fine. Look at the Nordics, Sweden, Norway, France, all of these societies, they're doing fine. That it could be argued they're doing better on human happiness than the US. But you don't care about that. I don't know why rabbit population is supposed to transfer to societal structure in humans. This is the worst analogy because those two things have nothing in common with one another. Are you saying people become atheists and then nobody has any grass to eat? What are you talking about? It's madness. This is from a PhD philosopher. This is a non sequitur. There is nothing to do with one another. This is death by analogy. Wow. David, what are you doing? Like, seriously. Because rabbits eat a lot, atheists will destroy the world. Okay. Wow.
The way ideas are connected in a society is very similar to the way organisms are connected in an ecosystem. And what's been happening in Western society over the past several decades?
No, they're not. No. What are you talking about? Ideas are like an ecosystem? I don't think you can make that analogy like that. What? Like this analogy, like, how are ideas and societal structures like an ecosystem, like where you have multiple different species of animals that all rely on a balance in order to exist? How is that? How are they similar? I don't understand. It's like, we all rely on no, we don't. We can make other structures. I don't, I don't, because societal structures are not a concrete thing. They're just an abstraction. They're just a social structure. Like, we have the Department of Motor Vehicles. Okay, there's nothing like in the way that operates that is anything like a forest that if it like gets cut down, it's gone. Like, no, we just create another structure. What are you talking about? This is ridiculous.
As every long-standing tradition.
Now you know why I put this under fundamentalist fails, because the analogy that he's trying, the two things are not analogous, right? They're just not.
Or value is attacked is the ecological equivalent of a forest fire.
A forest fire. A forest fire.
Destroying the religious and moral framework is like a forest fire.
So tell me David Wood knows nothing about Australia and bushfires without saying he knows nothing about Australia and bushfires. Does he know about bushfires in Australia? Does he have any idea about bushfires in Australia? So there are trees in Australia whose seeds only germinate under extreme heat because the organisms are so adapted to hot weather and bushfires. There are literally some trees that only seed when there's a bushfire. You have to have bushfires. In fact, the First Nations of Australia, the Aboriginal Australian people, they used to set and control bushfires in order to promote growth. It was a good thing. And we still do it today. Say the Department of Conservation and Land Management would set and control bushfires because we need them to germinate the trees. Australia is adapted to bushfires. They can get out of control. Don't get me wrong, that's a bad thing. But there's nothing like bushfires are integral to Australia. So your entire thing about Australia here is just meshed with a non-understanding of how bushfires work. I think he means wildfires, like completely out of control. But, you know, religion's still around. It's not gone anywhere, unfortunately. And I don't see how a bushfire is like atheism. Oh, well, it doesn't replace it with anything. Well, what about secular humanism? Like, you could argue that that's inferior to Christianity if you want, sure. But it's definitely a belief system. It doesn't replace it with nothing. But, you know, I mean, I wouldn't say atheism replaces it with anything because atheism isn't a belief system in itself. But you're talking about the new atheists specifically, who all were secular humanists, from Daniel Dennett to Sam Harris. They're all secular humanism. So
forest has trees and other plants, birds, mammals, insects, and so on. The forest burns. The trees, which had been there for decades or centuries and provided stability to the ecosystem, burn.
Yes, which is what's supposed to happen in Australia, because the seeds get cracked open by the heat and germinate in the very fertile soil that is left. It's a beautiful cycle. It's a beautiful thing. You're just somebody that doesn't understand what happens in Australia. But I would push back anyway that this is in any way analogous to atheism. And plus, atheism is saying, hey, we can't, you know, we have no evidence of this God. At least we've got evidence of the trees. Ugh. But, you know, like all of his arguments, it's not whether the God exists. He doesn't want to argue about that. He wants to argue about whether it's good for society. He hasn't made a case of what will happen if you know, because this entire video was sort of what will happen under atheism. He hasn't made a case for that. He's just sort of said, well, bushfire bad. Well, no, not necessarily. Bushfire vital, in fact, but it can be bad, yes, if not controlled. But how in any way is atheism like a bushfire, apart from you asserting it just burns everything to the ground? I don't know. Nobody knows. It's just how much non sequitur could a David Wood chuck if a David Wood could chuck non sequiturs? Holy crap.
What replaces the trees that burn?
New trees. New trees. The seeds germinate. New trees. That's the life cycle.
Whatever weeds spread most rapidly. Again,
no, that's not what happens. No. Oh, crikey. Whatever weeds spread most rapidly. No. The native trees whose seeds can survive the bushfires because they're evolved to survive the bushfires. The Australian native trees are equipped to handle bushfires. But what do you know? Yeah, your analogy suddenly falls down now. Yeah, let's burn it all down and let the best ideas take root. How about that? How about that? Oh, but my precious... No, if it's not true, no one cares, David. We have better ideas than sort of your sort of Iron Age whimsical, you know, God wants this and God wants that. No, we've got better ideas. We can form systems that help people and care for people without your God.
I'm really talking about ideas. When the ideas and values that have been the bedrock of your society for centuries are suddenly destroyed, what replaces them?
Well, they haven't been. I mean, I would say that classical Greek thinking has probably been the bedrock. What, you know, sort of came before Christianity. I think that our modern society is based upon a lot of things. I don't think it's he's trying to sort of say, hey, you've got to be thankful for Christianity because it gave you everything in society. No, that isn't true. That isn't true. Our numbers came from Arabic, sir. I'm very sure of that. That's the Islamic world. Our society is an amalgamation of all kinds of influences. And I certainly wouldn't say that Christianity didn't have an influence, but that doesn't mean that Christianity gets a special place above and beyond everybody else. It's been influential. So doesn't matter. So is communism. It doesn't mean that it gets a special place. I don't know what he's talking about.
Whatever weeds spread most rapidly. So the new atheists really thought that by setting their own forest on fire, some sort of utopia was going to magically emerge. Now they're staring at a bunch of weeds they can't control.
What a straw man of what they were trying to do. Like, seriously. Like, just stop your straw man, David. Like, seriously. They weren't trying to burn anything to the ground. They were just questioning whether your God actually exists. And if that doesn't exist, then why should religion get some kind of special privilege to say, hey, we are the arbiters of what's true and what's not, based upon our authority from God? If the God doesn't exist, you don't have any authority. And no, they didn't think that a utopia would emerge. But the success of secular nations, especially in Europe, shows that without religion, you can have a very well-functioning society with a high level of societal happiness. They've shown that. I mean, it must irk David so much that Christians commit way more crimes than atheists do. It must irk him beyond belief. Like, I don't know, because he thinks that sort of somebody without God has to be an immoral monster, because he was an immoral monster when he was younger. And that's not the case. I don't think that David doing what he did and ending up in prison, I don't think that's got anything to do with atheism. I think it's got more to do with him being, having antisocial personality disorder.
Wondering what went wrong. Second, although it was rare, some of the new atheists did occasionally think beyond the superficial, me no like Christianity, so me get rid of it, to consider the possible ramifications of getting rid of Christianity. Richard Dawkins, of all people, for many years has been saying things like, I have mixed feelings about the decline of Christianity, insofar as Christianity might be a bulwark against something worse.
Yeah, that is, Richard Dawkins, I don't agree with everything he said. I think that, in my country, Christianity declined, and it hasn't gone, like, it hasn't just descended into madness. I love the next sentence is like, he
said that in 2010. In 2018, he warned in a tweet, before we rejoice at the death throes of the relatively benign Christian religion, let's not forget Hilaire Belloc's menacing rhyme, always keep a
I don't agree with Dawkins on this one. I really don't. I'm going to skip past this because it sort of is just more attacking Dawkins. But I think that he's wrong. I think that sort of we have some pretty horrific Christian sects out there, especially the ones trying to get into power in the US at the moment. I don't think they're relatively benign. I think they're relatively horrible. And I think Dawkins himself has said some pretty egregious things. So I don't agree with him on that. And that's okay. We atheists, we don't have to agree on everything. He can have his opinion and I'll have mine. That's fine. We don't have to agree.
Now in a position to test those predictions.
But this is a PhD philosopher using an appeal to authority. Like, oh, the new atheist, the authority on atheism. It's simplistic stuff. Like, oh, I think Dawkins is wrong. I don't think Islam's got any special power over people or any special position. It's just what Dawkins happens to be afraid of. Sam Harris as well. Christopher Hitchens as well.
And they didn't come true. What did the new atheists predict? Since Christianity is an obstacle to progress and science, getting rid of Christianity will lead to progress and more science.
Well, yeah, in the southern states, if you get rid of Christianity, who are blocking teaching evolution, I think that you will get more progress on those fronts. I think that anything like, you're talking about Christianity blocking progress on certain fields and saying, oh, well, they promised we would have more progress overall. No, they didn't. They said in those fields that they're blocking. Like, I don't think they were going, hey, if we get rid of Christianity, suddenly the computer industry will just have the most amazing progress. You are straw manning again, David. Stop. Wow, David. Ugh.
Replacing Christianity with atheism will make people more rational, more scientific, more noble. People becoming atheists will make society better. Let me ask, how is any Western nation better in any way thanks to the new atheism?
What do you mean? I mean, there's been a lot of nations like you could argue that the Scandinavian nations, they sort of, the only problems that they've kind of had have been religious people. Like major problems. There's some other ones, sure, but we haven't seen an atheistic nation. Like, it's always been a secular nation. And how much progress do you want in like 20 years? Like 20 years? It's not a great deal of time to see the effects of something, and the effects haven't even been that big yet. This is really weird. I mean, he said the new atheists only started from 9/11. Okay, well, I think it started earlier than that, but sure, let's go with what you're saying. 9/11, so 2001 or whatever. You're talking about 20 something years. Have we been more compassionate to people? Yeah, I think so. I think we've been a lot less racist. I think we've been a lot less bigoted towards people. I don't know what you're looking for. Has Australia become more tolerant and nicer? Yeah, it has, actually. Yeah, it's good people here. We voted yes on gay marriage. We voted yes on sort of rights for people. It's become a lot better over here since we've become secular. Thank you very much. So yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, because he thinks that if it doesn't happen in America, it happens nowhere in the world. Wake up. You're not the only country out there. I don't. I'm very, very confused as to what he's talking about and whether we should see anything in 20 years.
Have Western nations become more rational, more scientific? More
Yes. Oh, Hill Hugger, for 15 months. Now's the best time to have ever existed. Yeah. It's actually getting pretty much better. But if you compare back to the 2000s, I mean, what are you supposed to say about that? You know what I mean? Like, they're very similar times. Yeah, I guess there's sort of less war, as we had the Gulf War during that time. Will people accept another war against an Islamic nation? Probably not. I think there's a lot of people that won't accept that. Is that because of the new atheists? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's got anything to do with the new atheists. But you're sort of saying, hey, they promised all these consequences that they didn't promise. They didn't promise any of this stuff. They just said, hey, here's a way to think rationally. Like, you're sort of going, well, if anything goes wrong, it's all the new atheists' fault. How so? There's no secular, like truly 100% secular government. There's no secular humanist nation out there. Why would you think it? Bleh.
Noble. No, Western nations are going completely insane.
What? Western nations are going completely insane. Yeah, so, oh boy. How are they going insane exactly? What are you talking about? If you're talking about Trump, I'm kind of inclined to agree. I mean, that man is insane, but like, Western nations are going insane.
Millions of people becoming atheists didn't get us one step closer to a scientific utopia, but it got us 487 steps closer to a psychotic dystopia.
Oh,
So
just ignore all of the scientific advances we've made over the last 20 years. Yeah, no, we haven't discovered anything that. I want to ask a question. How much has the church contributed to that scientific understanding, like all of this scientific utopia kind of thing? Well, look, at the moment we're looking at systems that can drive your car for you, and like, this is the thing. You're basically saying that, hey, all of these new atheists promised a scientific utopia, which they did not for a start. Like, what are you talking about? They just simply said, hey, maybe it's a good idea we don't hold back evolution for some reason. And plus, like, you've got a smartphone, dude. You have a smartphone in your pocket. My smartphone is much more powerful than the computer I had back in the 1990s, you know? So what are you talking about? Do I think that's because of the new atheists? No. Why would I? That's just technological progress. This is the most strawman-y straw man that ever strawed. David, you should be ashamed of yourself. This is shocking. The new atheists promised a scientific utopia. Oh, like hell they did.
that's why the new atheism has lost its momentum. Superficial thinking, paving the way for Islam, and failed predictions. Now, I mentioned earlier.
So paving the way for Islam. Don't you think it should be important that the God you believe in actually exists? No, no. Just convince everybody. This is why I don't think David Wood actually believes in the God. I think he just thinks that the religion is convenient. Not only does it pay all of his bills, but it also, makes him stable against the evil Islam that's taking over the world. So I think he just finds it useful. It's pragmatic.
Epic failures of the new atheism give us the materials for two new arguments against atheism.
Okay, what are they?
We might call one the argument from inadequacy, or the argument from ineptitude, or the argument from incompetence.
The argument from incompetence. Of who? This is going to be good.
After more than 2 decades of massive cultural shifting towards atheism, it really seems that atheism is completely incapable of sustaining a society.
What are you talking about? What society has been destabilized because of atheism? What? You do know that America in the past had a civil war, right? You're aware of that? If you're talking about America being sort of a bit partisan at the moment, you are aware that the leaders of both sides are Christian, right? So you've got a Christian on one side who's more progressive, and a Christian on the other who's incredibly repressive and conservative. They're having a big fight. People are following them, and you're blaming the new atheists? Wow. Yeah, it is. And you have not demonstrated that atheism is bad for society. You have just asserted it and blamed new atheism for everything that has happened in the last 20, 25 years. And plus, you're only looking at America and not any other country throughout the world. And America isn't a majority atheistic country like some others that are actually going quite well. Like, we're doing great. I don't, we're getting along with it. There's a problem, we'll tell you. There's some issues. Oh, it's happened again, people. It's happened. God has smited me for daring to challenge the wood. 1 second. I got to close everything down, but I'll be right back. Yellow. Sorry, I'll just get set up again. This should fix the problem if I'm at all competent. Maybe it can be the argument. So the argument that society hasn't gotten better for some reason is the atheist problem. Yep. 4 reasons. Because if everybody was Christian, we wouldn't have any problems at all. None whatsoever. Like back in the days of antebellum slavery or the Civil War, when everybody was Christian, there were no problems then. What are you talking about? This is one of the worst arguments I have ever heard. You're just asserting that atheism caused all these problems. You're not actually showing that to be the case. You're just asserting it. A lot has changed since then. You could blame the rise of media. You could blame the rise of the internet. You could blame the rise of, any of these new technologies, computers, but how do we tell what has stabilized and what has actually caused dissension? I realize that, hey, among Christians, you're all unhappy. Therefore, you think it's worse off, but we're actually living in a better time than we ever have in history. So that argument does not fly. It just does not. Sorry, I'll just get the chat because I am out of my thing. Oh, let's test it first. So please, somebody tell me if it doesn't work.
For society, it's harmful. That's what gave the new atheists their momentum. So what happens if atheism is bad for society? What if atheism is harmful?
Well, you can demonstrate that, but I don't think it's atheism in a vacuum. I think that it's secular humanism you would have to demonstrate is bad for society, and we don't have any secular humanist societies. That's the thing. Like, you're sort of saying, hey, this is bad for society because I say it is. Why? There's atheistic societies, there's secular countries, and nothing's going horribly wrong in them. Do you want something to go horribly wrong in them to prove yourself right? I don't understand. Like, what are the big, problems that we have at the moment? Well, one's Israel-Palestine. You can't blame the new atheists for that. Another is Ukraine-Russia, and you can't blame the atheists for that either. This is just silly.
If atheism is bad for society, it's got to go, right? I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. We might call the other argument the argument from glaring.
Yeah, that's a terrible argument. That is so bad. because you have not actually established that atheism is bad for society. You have just asserted that. You're begging the question. You just assume that it's bad for society. And and a forest fire analogy, this is poor at best. Barnaby Wild for $2. Just feel like saying hello again. Hello, Barnaby. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's always good to see you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I want to hear this second argument. I'll end after this argument. I want to address both of them. This one's even a non-starter, in my opinion. It just says, well, if atheism's bad for society, then it should be gotten rid of. Atheism's bad for society. Is it? Can you demonstrate that in any way? Because we're getting more and more atheists, and it's not causing the collapse of society. Like, do you have any metrics? Do you have any stats on that? No, you're just going to assert that it's bad. Okay, yeah.
Obvious spiritual rebellion. Again, from an atheistic perspective, it doesn't make much sense to care a whole lot about what other people believe.
What? Could you repeat that?
From glaringly obvious spiritual rebellion. Again, from an atheistic perspective, it doesn't make much sense to care a whole lot about what other people believe unless it's harmful to you or to society.
In a certain sense, people's beliefs always matter in a society, because no one person is an island. And I'm not sure that David can ever really wrap his head around this, that every member of that society is kind of affected by every other member, that we're in it together. So what people believe do have an impact on me, on you, on all kinds of things. So what they believe, while I may disagree with it, is important in the sense that they are contributing to kind of the zeitgeist, or the beliefs in sort of as a group of the country or the society. So I don't, some beliefs I don't care about, some I do. Some are harmful, but if somebody has beliefs that sort of mesh with what I believe about helping society and helping humans, then it's important that belief, is good. But that's no reason to believe a God exists when they don't.
In other words, this person lives and dies as a Hindu, this person lives and dies as a Muslim, this person lives and dies as a Christian, this person lives and dies as an atheist. From an atheistic perspective, what does it matter?
Okay, from an atheist perspective, it doesn't. From a secular humanist perspective, it really does, because we have to organize and live with these people, because atheism isn't a belief system. And as a PhD philosopher, it is embarrassing that you don't know this, that atheism isn't a belief system. You can be an atheist and believe in totalitarianism. You can be an atheist and believe in transhumanism. But as atheists and the new atheist movement, this is where David's shifting off them, because he's perfectly happy to say, well, it's the new atheist, I have to be specific about them, but then he'll go general when it suits his case, which is really, really disingenuous. That the new atheists were all secular humanists. So it matters a great deal what other people believe to secular humanists, because we want to live in a society where people's beliefs are respected. Yeah, and that's absolutely right. Atheism does not have a view on people's beliefs. No, it does not. It is a personal lack of belief in a God, or depending on how you define it, a belief in no God, depending on your stance. That's it. It doesn't have, anything to do with any stance on any religion. Yeah, I bet he does, but it's kind of really dishonest from such a high level philosopher to sort of, conflate those things. I don't think it's by accident.
Why would you be obsessed with what other people believe?
Well, because I've got to live with them, because they're part of the society that I live in. and what they do affect me, and what I do affects them. This isn't rocket science, David. I, do you not have people in your society? What? How does atheists affect what you believe? Like, this is the thing. You could easily reverse this. How does what atheists think affect what you believe? Well, if you're right, you're going to heaven and we're going to hell, and it's not going to affect you. Oh, but I live in the society, so atheists undermine this. Yeah, we all live in the same society. That's exactly the same answer for me. Thank you. Well done. You got there.
Unless it's
I shouldn't be answering for him, but this is pretty basic stuff.
harming you or it's harming society.
Yeah. But I still have to pay attention to those beliefs because they are part of the society I'm in. Look, if somebody's got a belief that, you shouldn't eat pork, or they need halal, for instance, then that belief is important to me because it means that we have to make accommodations for them. And it's not harming society, so I don't mind making accommodations. I don't understand why he's got this vested interest in other people's beliefs where I don't. Like, do you care if people need halal? Yes. Why? Because they got beliefs. Yes, same here. What? It's this idea that, like, atheists are just nihilists with no particular interest in anybody outside themselves. It's this weird idea. I don't know where he got it from. Probably he thinks back to when he was an atheist and just held everybody in contempt. That's not because you're an atheist, David. That's because you were a psychopath or a sociopath, whichever one you were. I do apologize if I got the diagnosis wrong.
It makes no sense. So what happens when you find out that something is actually good for you, that it's actually protecting you, that it's actually protecting your society, and you attack it anyway?
No, the Christianity isn't protecting us from Islam. That isn't what's happening. What do you mean? Like, it's protecting us from Islam? No. What do we have to be? Most Muslims are just normal people that just want to work and do their thing and believe what they believe. They should have a right to what they believe, as long as they're not, repeat it with me, harming people or society, just like the Christians. But the fact that atheists say, hey, I don't believe in a God, and I don't think anybody really has a reason to, and you've been losing that fight so badly. Like, this isn't about, like, oh, the atheists, you need us to protect you from the nasty Muslims. No, we don't. No, we don't. What? No. What is he on about? I need you to join Christianity because otherwise the Muslims will take over. Get out of here, man. Seriously. We're not worried. The no religion is the fastest growing demographic. That sucks for Christianity, but we don't care. The same arguments and the same rationality works exactly the same against the Muslims. It works exactly the same. There's no difference. They have as much evidence for their God as you have for yours. And some of us, like myself, do anti-Muslim debates. It's fine. And if David Wood wants to debate, I would debate him in 2 seconds. I think that even though he's touted as being very good, I don't think he is. I think he's very convincing and assertive and charismatic in a debate. I don't think his arguments are good. I think they're very bad. And I think Matt Delahunty absolutely showed that.
Take Richard Dawkins, for instance.
Why? This is just an appeal to authority. Oh, here's an authority. Shake, shake, shake.
Dawkins does not like Christianity. But Dawkins has understood for a very long time that Christianity possesses some sort of ability to protect a society from worse things. And what does Dawkins do? He attacks Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the word may is pivotal there. Right? It may. He doesn't say it will, and I disagree with him. I don't think Christianity protects us at all. I see tons of people, swapping back and forward between Christianity and Islam. Like, I don't think it protects us in the slightest. I don't know.
Removing the bulwark until he's overwhelmed by the worst things. Does that make any sense whatsoever?
Yeah, because he doesn't think he's going to be overwhelmed by Islam. And I don't think any atheists are really worried about it. I don't think so. I think it's something that Christians jump up and down about as they're losing relevance. So they want to, oh, we're the only thing. Look, how much fear-mongering has this been and appeals to them? Oh, well, the scary, scary Muslim. No, we know Muslims. They're just people. Just relax, dude. Seriously. This whole thing is just a and there's horrible Muslims out there, sure, yeah. There's horrible Christians out there too. And at the moment, I'm more worried about the Christians. At the moment. Because Muslims aren't the ones like with a stranglehold over the US electoral institutions trying to get their religion's belief passed into law. So yeah, it's the imminent threat is Christianity. So we'll deal with Islam if and even when it comes up, which it might not.
Let's get more specific. In his discussion with Ayaan Hirsi Ali about her conversion to Christianity, Ali said that she was so empty and depressed as an atheist, she didn't want to live. And she said that becoming a Christian made her want to live again.
I lived for about a decade with intense depression and anxiety, self-loathing. I hit rock bottom. I went to a place where I actually didn't want to live anymore, but wasn't brave enough to take my own life. And so I was self-medicating. Having reached a place where I had absolutely nothing to lose, I prayed, and I prayed desperately. And for me, that was a turning point. And what happened after that is a miracle in its own right. I feel connected to something higher and greater than myself. I feel...
But is that true? Is it true? That's the question. Is it true? And just because you have one person, it doesn't mean everybody is like that. But this is just, again, an appeal to authority. It's just saying, hey, this one person who was the fifth kind of new atheist, the fifth one, which was the horsewoman, the one horse woman, converted to Christianity. Well, big deal. It's just one person. It doesn't, it's like saying, hey, there was this pastor who was really, an apologetics person and they deconverted. Doesn't make anything true. Oh.
My zest for life is back.
Dawkins heard his friend explain how Christianity gave her back her zest for life. Naturally, he responded by telling her how stupid Christianity is.
This is all obvious nonsense. This is all theological bullshit.
Now think.
Yeah, I have some issues with Dawkins and how blunt he is. Sure. He's a blunt guy. He's an old guy. He says this kind of stuff. But I've heard your two arguments. Neither of them are even getting at whether a God exists. So this is what David Wood does. He basically argues on the usefulness of Christianity, not whether it's true. He doesn't care whether it's true, apparently. He just cares whether we find it useful. And I don't think we do. I think it's it's a false sort of a false comfort that you're giving people. Because I could point to the incredible amount of people coming out of religion that feel so upset and betrayed and hurt, and the emptiness within religion, people that have been ostracized by religions for not thinking the right way or doing the wrong thing or transgressing even the slightest, all of the mental health issues that are caused to young people by believing in demons, and all of the unreported mental health issues because people think it's spiritual problems and not mental health problems. The child in Australia that died because her parents wouldn't give her the insulin she so desperately needed because of their religious belief. Like all of this harm. I don't think that stacks up against, this one person who was raised in religion, I might add, feels depressed. Yeah. There's a lot of people in religion that are depressed. They call it a spiritual fight and all of this other stuff. It happens. So this is just A, an anecdote. B, it's an appeal to authority. It's not an argument. It's just hey, this one person has an opinion. Great. Fantastic. Thanks. Not an argument. So these two new arguments are terrible. The argument from ineptitude, only if the new atheists are responsible for all the ills of the world, which you have not shown, and the argument from a woman feels better. I don't know what that is. I've actually had enough of David Wood today, so I think I might call it. I don't think he's going to say anything different besides, atheism bad for society for some reason, Christianity good for society for some reason. I don't think we're going to get anything more than that. So I will leave it there. But essentially, David Wood comes down to whether Christianity is useful for him personally and for society. And he believes it is. I don't think it is. I see many societies leaning more secular, and the people are doing fine. I don't know where he's getting this worldwide collapse that's apparently happening due to atheism of all things, because the wars that we're seeing, one is, obviously Putin invading Ukraine is obviously more about power than any kind of religious struggle, but he is a devout Catholic, very, very Catholic. In fact, he supports the churches a lot within Russia. And the other one is, Hamas versus Israel, which, okay, it's definitely not all religion, but religion plays a part in it. Islam versus Judaism is definitely a factor in there somewhere. So I don't know how you're blaming the new atheists for all of this. Especially Palestine and Israel, where there's been fighting happening for, ever. To go backwards, it's been nothing but fighting. I don't even know what he's talking about with this collapse of society. It sounds like another faith-based belief that, society is collapsing because, Christianity is true and the end must be coming. None of the statistics show that. Like, the secular nations that you're talking about are not messes. My country is doing fine, thanks, mate. And just for the last thing, if David Wood wants a debate, I absolutely would take that debate. And I challenge David Wood to debate. Debate me. Debate me on it. Does God exist? He doesn't like that does God exist. I don't think it's important to him. I think that, like sort of William Lane Craig, he honestly doesn't think it's important whether God exists or not. He's more interested in whether the religion can be used to manipulate people into doing things or becoming more coherent, basically. And I don't think in the long term that is a good way to run a society based upon lies and manipulation. I would disagree. I think that people can come together, make societal structures and make moral systems to benefit everybody. I think that's more than possible. It's just, the religious people in these religious institutions want to jump up and down and say, hey, without us, everything is lost. The Christians have been saying this for 2,000 years. Without us, everything falls apart. The churches have been proclaiming it for 2,000 years. Everything falls apart without us. And then we took them out of power. Nothing fell apart. Then we gave them less power. Nothing fell apart. They've been shouting about this forever. And this is just a long line of apologists doing exactly the same thing. Because if there's one thing that will make a religious person shout, being irrelevant is the thing that will make them go to doom and gloom and the collapse of everything. And nothing's collapsing. We're fine. I don't get the big deal. Anyway, thanks for joining me. This has been David Wood. And how much straw men could a David Wood chuck if a David Wood could chuck straw men? A lot, apparently. A lot, yeah. But I love how someone comes in and accuses me of like just doing sort of a fear-mongering kind of thing. Wow, that's the irony is palatable. It's incredible. It's irony on a whole new level. It's great. I love it. I love it. But thank you so much, everybody. Don't forget, aimbot will be starting. I'll start it this week, see how it goes, see who turns up. It should be a lot of fun, just going through some situations and trying to apply secular humanism, because you can't apply atheism as a moral system. David, you should know this. It isn't a moral system. It isn't a belief system. It's just a position on one proposition. That's all it is. You should know this. And I kind of think he does. I think he just tries to misrepresent it. And, you know, stop conflating new atheists and atheism and all that kind of thing. You know, the new atheists were all secular humanists. So look at those beliefs, not just, oh, well, atheism doesn't have any beliefs. Yes, but you're talking about the new atheists. They were all secular humanists. Oh, Nitty's live now? Okay, well, I'll do a redirect. But thank you so much. So stick with the channel if you do want to see Nitty it up, because we all like to see Nitty it up. I'm going to get something to eat. But do drop a like and a subscribe if you're not subscribed already. I really appreciate it if you do. It helps me out a great deal. Don't forget, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.